Lebowski has bloomed in all these different ways. I mean, there are these Lebowski fests. I had my Beatle moment playing with my band, the Abiders, at a Lebowski fest. It's playing to a sea of dudes. You know, they're all dressed up like the dudes or bowling pins or whatever. You know, oh, that was wonderful.
Welcome to Salon Talks. I am Mary Elizabeth Williams, and what a treat today because I get to abide with the amazing, incredible Jeff Bridges. He has been nominated for 7 Academy Awards, won 1 for Crazy Heart. You also know him, of course, from, oh my God, I can't even go on. Fabulous Baker Boys, True Grit, Iron Man, but let's also talk. We can't forget the iconic role as the dude in the Big Lebowski. But now he's starting the 2nd season. It is back at last on FX. It's called The Old Man. I can't wait to talk about this show. Jeff, welcome. Okay.
Hey there, man.
Hey, it's been 2 years. It's been more than 2 years since the last season. It's been a long journey, so we pick up right where we left off.
Right.
For those who maybe need a refresher, where are we with Dan and his journey?
Well, he finally gets together with John Lithgow's character, Harold, and they're off to find their daughter, find their girl, off to Afghanistan. So we left season 1 with them walking on the airport to the plane, and we open up and they're in Afghanistan, and the adventure begins.
Kicking butt and taking names.
Yeah.
This is a high energy project for you guys, for you quote unquote old dudes. Mm-hmm. I want to ask you what that feels like for you. This role that is, you know, you do voice work, you do work where you can sit in a studio and just have a coffee and relax, but this is physically demanding. This is travel, this is intense. What is that like for you? What do you do to prepare for a role?
Oh, well, you know, work out, do a little training so you can do some of the stuff that's required, which is a lot of fighting. And fortunately, we have Tim Connolly as our stunt coordinator, and he's just so great to work with. And also Tommy DuPont, who's my stunt guy that we've worked in several pictures together. And, you know, the basic assignment for the fight scene, it's like any other scene that you're doing, where you want it to be interesting, but at the same time look very real and like it's happening just for the first time. So that's, you know, that's what you, in a dramatic scene, that's what you're going for, and that's what you're going for with in a fight scene. And everything we're doing is an illusion, you know, we're pretending, right? You know, but we want it to seem as real as possible. And so to make that illusion, you practice, you figure it out. You know, it's like a dance routine. You know, you work it out, and then you've got to make it seem like it's happening for the first time after all of that, work.
Doing this is a show that it's really the little show that could, because you began production in 2019, right?
I can't believe it. Yeah.
Get shut down for COVID. Then you unfortunately get diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
You get diagnosed with COVID that is a real butt kicker. Then there's a strike.
All the strikes and a bunch of them.
You talk about the action part of it, but in terms of just keeping the momentum for yourselves, physically, mentally, emotionally, staying true to this arc, to these characters, to their story. Over 5 years, while you're going through the ringer, Jeff, how do you do it?
Something? Well, it's a good question, and I don't know exactly the answer. I think something that pops into my mind is just momentum. You know, the feeling of being off for, like, we were almost off for 2 years. And you come back and you see all the same people. And it feels like you just had a long weekend, you know, and you pick up right where you left off. It's like muscle memory or something. And so that was, fascinating to go through that experience. But talk about who you're coming back to, you know, Amy Brenneman and John Lithgow and Alia Shawkat and it's a wonderful team. That makes all the difference, what I do.
You talk about coming back and picking up where you left off, but when you pick up, you are a different person now, Jeff.
That's true. That's very true.
You've been through something truly life-changing. You had a very, very intense health scare with cancer and then the COVID. I want to know how that changes you, how it changes your approach to the work that you're doing, to the relationships you have on and off set. And then I wonder how it impacts this character of Dan, who also is facing mortality on a regular basis.
Yeah. Going through something like that, it just exacerbates lots of stuff. Your philosophy, of life, Oh, well, what's your strategy now here in this situation? And you bring out everything that's ever worked for you in your life. And a lot of that has to do with the L word, love, that corny thing. But you realize how much you love your family, how much you love the nurses and the doctors that are there for you, trying to get you better. And you feel all your loved ones you feel their love that you have. So all of that is quite intense. And it's interesting that everybody goes through it, I think, differently. Not only the people who are actually going through the illness, but the people who love you. Each one of them are going through in their unique way, And my way, remember my doctor saying to me, Jeff, you're not fighting, you've got to fight. And I had no idea what they were talking about. I was in surrender mode. I say, oh, that's right, people die, and this is me doing that. Oh, okay. Oh, well, what's this like,
Do you feel there's a difference between fighting and surrendering? Because you can surrender to the process in a way that is very constructive.
Absolutely. And I was thinking, you can also surrender to fighting in a funny sort of way, or fighting, they blend, it's like the particle and wave thing, this quantum computing. You've heard about this. It's coming up. It's going to change things in a big way. But that seems to be what life is about. It's a big paradoxical thing.
And when you talk about the love, you got a trainer so you could walk your daughter down the aisle?
I had a trainer right away. Zach, I got his name. I was going to say one of the downsides of being an old man is that you forget things, but I guess that happens to everybody. But Zach, my trainer. Yeah, as soon as I got out of the hospital, I had a trainer, and I would have these little goals. The first goal was, all right, let's see how long you can stand. 89, 90 seconds, good, and then you walk around the hospital floor and you got your oxygen. You must have done some of this stuff. You got the thing up your nose and you're the pursed lips breathing. Were you into that? Wonderful. That's a wonderful skill or a wonderful thing, that pursed lips breathing. I still do that.
Just to get yourself to the toilet is like the biggest.
Well, you brought it up. But that's a toughie, right?
It's a good day.
Defecating.
It's a good day.
Oh my God. Oh. But so I give myself these little goals, and I didn't think I was going to work again. No, Jeff. If you live, you're not going to be able to do that. And then my daughter, Haley, was getting married. And I said, and she wanted me to walk her. She said, come on, Dad, walk me down the aisle. This is an interesting thing about fighting and surrendering. Surrendering to the idea of walking her down the aisle. That's what I was into. And it was difficult, and I suppose in that, we go up to our edge where we think this is as far. And then I like to do little experiments on myself. I say, this is my edge. Wonder what would happen if I just go a little farther. Oh, okay. And to reach that edge is kind of a wonderful thing. That's where all the gold is, really. That's where the treasure is, when you can mess around with that edge and see where it is. So the day came and I said, gee, I can do it. I can walk her down the aisle. And then when the day came and I was walking her down the aisle, and then the dance, you think you got it up to dance with your girl? I said, well, let's see. I'll give it a shot. I don't, surrendered to it. It's difficult. I raced back to my chair, put the thing on, but that was the little goal. And then after that, I said, man, maybe I'll be able to go back and fire up the old man again.
And you did.
And I did. And Zach, my trainer, he was my partner, and worked with me to do that. And he was so skillful at just enough challenges, but let me do it at my own speed. I appreciated that.
Jeff, when you've been through all of those things, it gives new context to this idea of the old man, to this character that you're playing, to be able to own that phrase, the old man. How does that feel for you, to be the old man?
Yeah, well, I qualify, 74 now, but Joel Gray, he trumped us all in his 90s, John's older than me, Lithgow's older than me. But being an old man, fascinating thing, and having gone through that illness and stuff, one of the things that occurred to me was, doesn't go on forever. You're gonna end. You got some stuff to do. Now's the time, man. So it brings all of that, stuff that you were waiting to perfect, and all do. Say, how about now? So that's what's happened. That's what this age has kind of given me. It's like you got some stuff. Let's see it. Let's hear it.
It's not forever, and you've been doing this for basically 74 years.
Right, that's right.
You started as a baby.
Baby, 6 months old.
So, but this was not you. For those who don't know, you come from a show business family.
Yeah.
Your father, your mother, your brother. Yet you have said you weren't sure you wanted to go into this profession. You weren't sure you wanted to be an actor. What made you change your mind? And I want to know the influence that your parents had on that.
Yeah, that's good. Well, unlike a lot of showbiz parents, my parents dug showbiz a lot and wanted all their kids to get into it. So that was the atmosphere I grew up in. And what teenager wants them to do what their parents want them to do, So I resisted and had a lot of reasons for my resistance. I didn't want to compete with my father and my brother. And I was interested in music and painting, and a lot of other, creative endeavors. My dad said, Jeff, don't be ridiculous. That's what's so wonderful about acting. All those interests, you're going to be called upon to use them in the work, and I'm glad I listened to him. He was absolutely right. And but now, as an older guy, a lot of those desires that were pushed down when I was a kid are kind of coming up now. I grew up with the Beatles and Bob Dylan, and nothing like getting a band together. So I can't remember my exact age, maybe over 60. Like my dad told me, he said, you're going to be asked to do some of these things. And Crazy Heart came along, and my dear friend T-Bone Burnett was doing the music. And after the success of that, I thought, gee, I've got all these other tunes. Maybe I'll call up T-Bone and see if he wants to, get these done. And so we made an album, and then that got exciting. And I said, yeah, I've got all these great musicians that live in Santa Barbara, and my dear friend Chris Polonis, he's a wonderful musician. So we formed a band called The Abiders, went out with that. And then I got sick. Then the strikes, and there was all this downtime. And what I found coming up for me was, gee, Jeff, you've got all of these tunes in your music mine, I call it, M-I-N-E. You know, why don't you go in there and see if there's anything there that you want to realize? And I found a whole slew of songs. And I didn't feel like getting a band together, rehearsing. I said, just put this rough stuff out and juxtapose it to some interesting images that you shoot on your cell phone. And I put out 5 volumes of that adventure called Emergent Behavior. And if people are interested, they can check it out on my website, jeffbridges.com. And so that's one of the things that has popped up, like saying, come on, old man, what you got? Now's the time. You're going to wait till everything is perfectly polished? No, if somebody else wants to do that in the future, they can polish them up. Just put out what you got. So doing that, I'm also doing, this is really exciting. I'm a photographer. My wife's a photographer. And we've been married 47 years. And for our wedding, she gave me the gift of a wide lux camera. There was a fellow, Mark Hanauer, came to our wedding, and he took some pictures, and I said, wow, what kind of camera is this? The format's kind of like a 70 millimeter movie format. So my wife gave me one of these, and I started taking pictures of during the movies that I was making, make books for the cast and crew of these pictures. Put out a couple of books that are available to the public, volume 1 and 2. And then I was upset because the camera was no longer being made. The factory burned out about 30 years ago. So I got this idea, started to talk to Sue about it. She goes, yeah, that's good. Why don't we do that? So we got in cahoots with some German Karis and Marvon, and we are remaking this camera.
That's
Who
incredible.
would have thunk it, And again, on my website, you can learn more about it, So I can go on and on. I've got all these little side projects, Mary Beth. It's fascinating. So that's what old age is doing to me. It's funny.
You're not letting grass grow under your feet. You talked about, the way that you're approaching that and the way that you're approaching everything so philosophically, the fact that your group is called the Abiders. I have to ask, obviously the influence is this iconic character of yours, this character, the dude who has become an institution, has become a way of life for people. I want to ask you about that because you lean into it. You are happy to be the dude. You are happy to be the dude for other people, right?
Oh, yeah, gosh.
What has he meant to you in terms of your life and your identity over the last 26 years?
Fascinating. Working with the brothers, that's the top, the Coen brothers and the team that they assemble. A lot of them had worked together many, many times. But the experience itself was wonderful. I got my wide lux, took a bunch of pictures, so if I want to relive those times, I can just look at those. That's wonderful. And then Lebowski has bloomed in all these different ways. There are these Lebowski fests. I had my Beatle moment playing with my band, the Abiders, at a Lebowski fest. It's playing to a sea of dudes. They're all dressed up like the dudes or bowling pins or whatever. That was wonderful. Then I'm having a dinner. I think it was Ram Dass. You know who Ram Dass is? It was his birthday. Ram Dass is sitting to my right, and to my left is a guy named Bernie Glassman, who happens to be a Zen master. He has an organization called the Zen Peacemakers. And he leans over to me and says, Jeff, I want to let you know that I really enjoy the Big Lebowski. It's filled with koans, and I'm all about bringing Buddhism to, these days that we're living now. And I said, Coen, what do you mean? He says, well, look, who wrote and directed the movie? The Coen brothers, you know. So yeah. And I said, oh, yeah. And he says, and the movie, I mean, yeah, is filled with koans. You know what a koan is? You know, what's the sound of one hand clapping, these mind challenges? I said, well, what do you mean? He says, well, first of all, the dude abides. That's very Buddhistic. Both of our favorites was, yeah, but that's just your opinion, man. You know, wow, we could live in the world of opinions. I think we would all be, rather than certainty, I think we'd be in good shape. Shut the fuck up, Donnie. That's a good koan, you know. So he says, let's write a book about it. And I said, really? He says, yeah. So that's what we did. We went up to Montana, got a place up there for 2 weeks. We wrote The Dude and the Zen Master. And it's a wonderful book. Later, Bernie came to visit when we were doing True Grit. And he asked the brothers, you know, are you guys into Zen? They said, no. And when making Lebowski, we never talked anything spiritual or philosophical. But that movie has bloomed in beautiful, beautiful ways. My friend T-Bone Burnett, again, did the music for it.
Let me ask you something, Jeff, because when we think about the dude made an appearance over this summer, made a special cameo on a certain Zoom call. I want to ask you about that, about the white dudes for Harris, because I want to know why that was important for you to be part of that. You are a political guy, you are an outspoken guy, you care a lot about things like childhood hunger and the environment.
Yeah.
What are the stakes in this election, and why did you want to be involved in that?
Oh, well, you know, life is so serendipitous. You know, you'll see something. I was invited, white dudes for Harris. Well, I qualify so beautifully for all those things, particularly the dude deal, you know, and that's what drew me into it. And again, another example of Lebowski's blooms, you know. So I got on there, and I didn't really realize it was kind of a more serious thing, that it was white dudes. I still don't quite get it. Are not respected or something? What is the thing? Do you know?
Listen, as a non-dude, maybe I shouldn't.
No. I mean, I don't really understand about the white dude, the white guys thing for Harris, but I'm certainly in support of Kamala. My gosh, she's wonderful. I loved her the other night on that debate, and we got all the support from Taylor Swift and the Cheneys. You know,
I know.
Liz Cheney is such a wonderful hero, I think, to all of us. So it's exciting.
So the dude abides, and the old man abides. Jeff, right? The show is in its second season. We can watch it now on FX.
Yes.
A lot of excitement. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. And
Great
stay healthy.
All right,
Jeff
you
Bridges.
too, my
it's been
dear.
a pleasure.
Yes, you too. All right.
Thank you for watching Salon Talks. If you had a good time, why not subscribe right over here so you can get more conversations with your favorite artists, actors, directors, writers, comedians, musicians, politicians, everybody you love, and I love too. And while you're here, why not watch another video right now?